They're off to a 3-0 start. They look great. Does this feel different to you? I feel like we do this every couple of years with this group of players where we entertain the idea of them making the Olympics and making some noise. Where are you at in terms of that thought process?
I think it definitely feels different. I mean, hey, if you look at this team, there's some players in this team that I just shake my head and go, you got to be kidding me. Like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you watch him play. How many times have we had conversations about Luka Doncic?
Yep.
That here's a guy that you can't change his speed, right? He does whatever he wants. You can't speed him up. You can't slow him down. When you watch Shai play, he does whatever he wants. And he's at that point guard position. You look at his size, he can score, he can defend, he can go inside, outside. He finds the open man. I mean, this guy's a monster. Just having a player like that can dominate the game completely. And then he's surrounded by really good complementary pieces. And, I think one of the things that jumps out at me, and I really like that, obviously you wish you had all your very, very best, right? But at the same time, you have key international players, FIBA players that are playing on this team too. So that complements the NBA talent. It gives you, you have the international flavor, you have the NBA flavor, and the chemistry is really good. You don't have guys necessarily worried about minutes. You have everybody just worried about playing. And again, the guys that have the international flavor, they just offer so much experience that helps all the NBA players deal with everything.
Well, I saw a stat earlier this afternoon that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the fourth Canadian with multiple 25-point games at a single men's World Cup. The first since Jay Triano in 1986, which is incredible. Carl Ridd was the first one to do it in 1954. Do you know who the fourth guy was, Leo?
No idea. Probably some slug.
Leo Rautins in 1978. You must have been hot back then, Leo.
I told you it was some slug.
That's got to feel pretty good being in that kind of status. That's incredible, man. 25-plus in back-to-back games. I mean, I guess you can speak to experience, right? Like you're mentioning Shai. This guy, like Shai's a first-team All-NBA stud, and he's bringing it to the international level. It's pretty incredible. Like that feels like the go-to guy. With all due respect to Jamal Murray, R.J. Barrett's had great stats recently in New York, played really well now. For Canada, but it feels like the program's kind of going to revolve around Shai, doesn't it, for the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, yeah. We'll also put it in perspective, okay? When I played, okay, I was an 18-year-old punk, all right?
Yeah.
So, whatever I did, it was like, okay, whatever. Here's a guy that's dominating this tournament. And like you said, you're talking about an all-NBA talent. And I'm not going out on a limb when I say he could be an NBA MVP. That's how good he is. So yeah, I think especially without Jamal Murray and Andrew Wiggins, I think he is the focal point. He's a guy you could build around. And again, I go back to what I was saying before. Like, let's just say you do have Jamal Murray and you do have Andrew Wiggins. And I'm not saying there'd be a conflict or egos or whatever else, but at the same time, if for Shai to be Shai, he would have to defer, right? If you're playing with Jamal, you're with Andrew, you're going to have to defer to them so they can also play and do their thing. Right now, he could just be the guy, right? He's got great complementary pieces. R.J. Barrett is a smart player. He can complement Shai. You look at Alexander Walker. You look at Dort. You look at all these guys. Kelly Olynyk is the perfect complementary player. So Shai can be a star. And it's not taking away from anybody else. It's going to add to everybody else. And that I think that makes a big difference for this team.
Leo, you talk about the roles and the acceptance of the roles. In order to be the very best, they have to have everybody here, don't they? And do you see that happening moving forward? Like, would they be watching, saying, okay, well, this is getting interesting now?
I think they all want to play. And I dealt with this when I was coaching. People say, well, guys don't want to play. No, they do. Unfortunately, life gets in the way, right? Okay, Jamal Murray, even if this situation, if he's not dealing, say, with his knee, you just won a championship. You make an ungodly amount of money as an NBA champion. You'd like to repeat. You'd like to win another one. Your season basically just ended, and you got training camp around the corner. So, do I fault a guy for not necessarily playing? No. And everybody, it could be family, it could be money, it could be contracts, it could be injuries. Those things happen. So, I said it when I was coaching. I'll say it now. The key is to have a pool. You need a pool of 20 guys, 25 guys that all have talent, that have FIBA experience, that can complement each other. And I like the idea of mixing the Euros with the NBA guys. And when you do that, you don't necessarily have to have all your best every time, because what you have is still pretty darn good. And this team has a chance to do something special, and hopefully they can just keep rolling. Hopefully they stay healthy and just keep on playing and focus in on every single game.
Is this the most talented group all in?
100%. 100%. Again, there have been some teams over the last few years that had, more NBA guys. But when you look at talent, I think that you have to weigh in chemistry and you weigh in, complementary pieces. So to me, yeah, this is. And you also have, again, we're talking about, and R.J. Barrett is at the peak of his career so far, right? He's gotten to a level that, has been tremendous. Shai is all NBA. Kelly Olynyk is a key player in the NBA on every team he goes to. So you're looking at guys that have grown. So even if some of these guys played 2, 3, 4 years ago, right, they're different players now. So, yeah, this is the best team Canada's ever fielded. And here's the great news, boys. It's only going to get better.
Mm-hmm. We're chatting with Leo Rautins. Well, Dillon Brooks is right in the mix here, right? And Dillon.
Oh yeah.
Man, he's been a good NBA player, and this past year I think it got carried away from him to the point where I thought Memphis really threw him under the bus, quite frankly. Like it was as if he was the reason they lost solely, which I think was ridiculous in retrospect. And now he moves on. And he's got to play a new role in Houston. But I'm curious if, international play and international success could have an effect on his domestic reputation. Like what the States, Canada, because even up here, like he's a local guy. And I think there's a lot of Canadians that are like, what's up with this guy, Leo? Like, what's his story? Success with the national team, how much of an effect can that have on Dillon Brooks and his rep?
Well, first of all, I think success with the national team can have a positive effect on everybody, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the global stage. We saw what it did for Steve Nash, right? I mean, Steve Nash was struggling in the NBA, but his role and his profile playing for Canada not only helped him and keep his confidence and allow him to eventually become a big-time NBA player, but I think it kept his profile alive everywhere. But I'm going to say this about Dillon Brooks. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'll take him on my team any day. Because you know what? How many times you hear about coaches trying to get guys to play, motivate guys, push guys. He comes out and he wants to kick your rear end every time he steps on the floor. He will fight you. He doesn't care who you are. And, okay, you've done some things like, say, the comments with LeBron. Not necessarily the smartest thing to do. At the same time, I love the fact that he will go at LeBron and doesn't care he's LeBron. That doesn't happen very often, right? I mean, that's a special guy that can go out and play that way every single time he steps on the floor. So that has a dramatic effect on everybody else. He plays that hard. You're obligated to match his level of play. And it doesn't mean he's the most talented guy on the floor, although I like his game in everything he does. But the fact that he plays so hard and so physical, it raises everybody else's level. So to me, I'll take him on my team anytime. And the fact that he got $80 million, I don't think people are too worried about what he did.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be a problem for ownership paying.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'll tell you what. I wish I could piss everybody off and get $80 million, but I can't, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a career out of that. I'm not making $80 million. I guarantee it, Leo.